Did you miss us last week? Get that wonderful replay of the Bloody Mary mix?
I hope they enjoyed it. Absolutely. I thought it was an amazing option. Thank you so much, everybody. I was trying to get over a cold. I still have the cough. It's not fully gone, but I was miserable last week. And I'm like, I can't be smiling for an hour. I'm like, I'm barely getting my work done and I need to rest. And I was feeling miserable.
You didn't have COVID, did you?
Nope. It was a cold. It was just a cold.
I think that, my opinion, I still think that's what COVID is. It's a cold.
It's a bad cold.
It's a bad cold. That's my opinion. I'm not a medical doctor.
So,
Don't ban me from social media because I have an opinion. Yeah.
That's right. No, I ended up going to a client and I didn't put on enough layers, and it's a warehouse. And so the cold was coming into the office multiple times, and then me going out into the warehouse. I did not have the layers I should have had, and I should have known. It was a very cold day, and by 4:00, I'm like, my throat was like, well, after talking to 17 people, I thought, oh, that's it. And then as I'm going home, I started with the cough, and by the time I got home at like 7, I was miserable, and we were on our way to the coast, and I was like, I'm just tired. I was grumpy. I'm like,
how many times have I told you? Just because we have a drinking podcast does not mean you get to go to your clients in a bikini. I'm telling you to stop that.
So I was there a week and a half later, and I had my little beanie on. I had my cashmere sweater on. I had a scarf. I had my vest on. I was layered. I'm like, I am not taking any of this off because I am not getting sick again. It's bad.
All right. Well, I mean, we talked about this. We're going to do what we were going to do last week, and we talked about this for an episode. We talked about like 2022 had some new favorites for us, right? And we kind of didn't define it, right? What favorite. But here's what I was thinking when I come up with the idea, and I know you probably had something different, and I thought it'd be a fun podcast. Is you and I get to go experiment some cool places because we're out. And one of the places I experimented this year and got to visit still sticks out in my mind how much it was, how much of an experience it was. So I thought I'm going to taste and bring the experiences that were great this year in, one being the distillery I went to, but another, I have several things that I have for here. Another I have was a moonshine. Then I went to the moonshine bar and they said, well, we have this, and I tried it and was blown away. Then I'm going to bring in some of the whiskeys that you and I have that were a mind blower. All right. Redneck Riviera. All right. It was very, it was a very neat experience this year to try that on the show. Yeah. And then I figured I'd wrap it up with my alcohol in what I still love. Even though I meet all these experiences, I still love one. And I know you have ones that you still love. Yeah. No matter what we try, you still love it, and it's still a thing.
Yep.
But then I thought food experiences, because this show's not just about drinking, it's about food. And one of the most unique food thing experiences I had this year was where we moved. My neighbor's from El Salvador.
Yeah.
And he made this fajita meat one night that blew me away. But then he told me where he got it.
Oh,
there's a meat market. It's like a Spanish type meat market. I don't know if you're familiar with that when you were in Texas, but this Spanish type meat market, you go in and they have all of these like things of marinated meat.
Nice.
The old fashioned meat counter, but it's like one bin after another of different marinades, different meat, and I'm like, I'm probably the only English speaking guy who goes in there.
It doesn't matter.
I don't care. But I mean, I got some of that fajita meat. I got both chicken and beef fajita meat and cooked it on the grill day.
Nice. Well, for me, it was when I originally thought of what I wanted to do, I thought hot toddy. And there was a couple of reasons for it. One, because I'm trying to get over a cold. Something warm and something soothing is going to be good for me. But then at the same time, I thought of my brother because my brother would make a hot toddy for my sister-in-law. And he would use Tennessee honey as the whiskey. It's already, it's already in
honey whiskey. Yeah.
the honey whiskey. And so he would text me and he goes, okay, I'm making a hot toddy. And then he would take a picture and he would just add the water, the whiskey, and then a little bit of lemon on top of it. And that's what he would give her. And so, I immediately thought of my brother. And then, of course, right after that, as I'm thinking of my brother, I'm thinking of my sister-in-law. And we went to visit them back in August. And one of the conversations we were having was about one that we've not brought on the show, but I had to bring it up. It was Whistle Pig.
Whistle Pig, yes. Oh, I've seen some of that in the local liquor store here.
Yes, and piggyback, and so it became this thing. They were at a bar after all this. It was September, October, where they said, just look after the bar for us because they know them, and they're the locals. And so then she says, I'm in charge of the bar. Piggyback for everybody. And so definitely piggyback. I think of my sister-in-law, and they gave us this during I should have brought, oh my goodness. I have these little teacups that she gave us that were adorable. And it says something to the effect of, it says whiskey cups or whiskey teacups or something like that. But they're little adorable porcelain little teacups that say whiskey cups. So you're supposed to have your whiskey in it, which is awesome. And so then the whole experience with them, and we love to cook. And so Sean and I always do, whenever we can, we're going to be doing some cooking because we enjoy it. And so I was like thinking of what have we done together. But the thing is that when we cook together, it's usually an experiment. It's something we're putting together. And so this weekend we put together this chicken with mashed potatoes, and then we made the sauce. It's a mushroom sauce. And so we kind of were playing with it. And so we tag team on what we're doing. Sometimes I'm chopping, sometimes he's chopping. This time I started with, let's thaw out the chicken breast. And then when I came home after being out with one of my friends, I chopped up the onions, chopped up the mushrooms. He did the seasoning, and he also, we didn't have enough flour, so we added panko to the breading of the chicken, which was not what we originally intended, but we loved it. And then we put Parmesan in it. We put wine in it, some paprika, some spices. And then on the chicken, you got all our normal spices that we're using, which we switch up. So if we were to make this again, it's going to be slightly different. And so I wanted to bring this up because of all the cooking we're constantly doing, and just the tag teaming where it's like he'll have me taste something and it's like, oh, it's missing this, or what do you think? It's like, oh, it's perfect, or leave it alone, or add more butter, and then a heavy cream on there. So this was definitely a homemade dish last night that was not originally what I was going to do last week, but it was freshly made. So I said, I got to do this because it just comes in line with us cooking not only for ourselves, but for my brother and sister-in-law. Yeah. Then of course, with the hot toddy, you can do so much. And so I had to bring in the Skunk Brothers whiskey because it's good whiskey, and it's got cinnamon, and it's got, it just has so many great flavors, all natural. And this can go into a hot toddy too. And the other thing that I kind of kept on the back end was the brandy, because this is what traditionally goes into a hot toddy. But that's not what I'm going to make today. I just thought I'd bring it up to say, hey, brandy is the original go-to. So there's a lot you can do with hot toddy. So that was kind of where I'm coming from on this end.
So, 2022, all right. We now have been doing the podcast for a year, you and I, all right. And it has brought on a lot of experiences for us, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of times we've tasted things that, you knew about, or I didn't, or I knew about and you didn't. And because of this show, I find on weekends, we're always out there explaining to each other what we're doing. I love it when I get a text from you or a Facebook post on a Facebook or Instagram page going, what you're trying out. And you say, man, check this out. And then we start talking about it on the show the next week. Right. Yeah. But same thing with me was, mine was a shocker this year. I really wasn't expecting this one that I got. And that was going into Dodge City, Kansas. First of all,
right.
I still have the glass.
Nice.
I have one left because I got two of them and one broke.
Oh, hate it when that happens.
But the day I was there, I took a picture, and I can't remember if I was. Remember me taking a picture? They had the decanter,
Oh
and
yeah,
they
yeah.
said we should do these. And then I sat there eyeing it up. I didn't buy it, but I sat there eyeing it up for a long time. All right, but did not buy it. Right. But I like collecting cups from different places, so I like having my different cups. I did find while cleaning out a metal shot glass from from Tombstone, Arizona.
Okay.
That was the trip I took with my father-in-law in 2010 or 11. All right, and we stopped there at the Boot Hill graveyard.
Okay.
And toured it, and we bought that. I bought that. He bought one too. All right, so it's a metal shot glass. You know, remember the old metal ones? Yeah. So
Those are fun.
Anyway, so I was going to do for my sample for tasting to remember my experience is Boot Hill Distillery. They're in Dodge City, Kansas. They're really not distributed. You really kind of got to go to them to kind of get this stuff.
Okay.
But my favorite that I got for them was a straight wheat whiskey.
Okay.
I have 2 bottles of this. I still have one more on my bar, but this one here is batch number 5, bottle number 511.
Oh, nice.
Just so you know, when they start, and I remember I tasted their bourbon. I tasted, they had a good gin, right? But this straight wheat whiskey was the one that I was like, I got to get bottles of this and take home. It was my favorite. So,
how many bottles did you buy? Did you buy one or multiple?
I bought 2.
Okay.
So I bought other stuff there that day, but I bought 2 of this.
Okay.
So, and the fact that, that was the beginning of our trip. I did not buy cases of bottles to carry with me and then have to lug into every hotel every night. So anyway.
You should have asked them to ship it for you. Hey, ship it for me.
Some places, this is where we get into some of the stuff that they have places shipping it. So they can't ship it to certain places. Now, Texas, I've never had a problem where they couldn't ship alcohol to me in Texas.
Okay.
Right. So, and it's usually not a problem, but there's some places they have problems with that. So I never ask. If I'm in the car, I take it with me.
No, there you go.
But
that's easy enough. So the hot toddy, there's actually history in a hot toddy. Go figure. But, leave it to me to always go, okay, what's the history of it? And so a hot toddy originally was started in what was controlled by the British at the time, India, back in the 1610s or so. And it was derived from the Hindi word toddy, which translates into a drink made with fermented palm sap. But then you moved into the 1786 where it became an official drink at that point with hot water, spices, and sugar. So that's why I added the hot water to my cinnamon stick to let it sit for a little bit. You don't have to, but I wanted to do that. You can also add cloves, whole cloves. I opted not to because I wanted to go a little bit more traditional, just with the cinnamon stick. And it's still a staple in Britain. So if you go to Britain, you're going to find hot toddies everywhere, mainly because I think it's cold and damp and cloudy and cold, and people want to stay warm. So essentially, here I added just the hot water and the cinnamon stick. But adding those additional spices came in time, and there's a lot of variations now where it started with brandy. That's the traditional, but a lot of people will add bourbon or whiskey. In this case, I'm going to be doing the Whistle Pig 100% rye. So that'll be a little bit different because I think I was drinking it with another whiskey, plain American whiskey. But there also was another story that said, oh no, it was another doctor that came up with the idea that it was a cure for the common cold. So it doesn't matter where the hot toddy came from. You know what? We're gonna follow whatever story we want to follow, and even across the pond, we're gonna enjoy it during these cold times, or even for if somebody has a cold. So this can be drank by kids if you just don't add the alcohol. So it is cinnamon. You can add cloves in there if you want. You can add ginger. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. The hot water, you can add orange or orange rind to it. And then lemon juice, honey, a little bit of honey. And then with that, it is delicious by itself, but you can also add, the whiskey onto it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. The hot toddy will warm a body
yes,
up.
It will warm your body up.
And of course, I'm like, you know what? And the other way that you can do it is if you don't have honey, sugar or simple syrup is another way to go. So you have various options of how to make this drink.
I do have to say, before we did this podcast, I never had simple syrup in my house.
Really?
Didn't have a use for it.
And the funny thing is that I do tell people, make your own, make your own simple syrup. But you know what?
It's not that hard to make. Yeah.
It's not hard to make. This has been pretty inexpensive to maintain. And I don't have to worry about like, oh, I haven't made any, Mm-hmm. So right now, this would be just a regular hot toddy, no alcohol in it. It's clear.
Oh, wait, Robert was thinking it was a Boilermaker. No, that's a different drink. We haven't done that yet, but we have to. In 2023, we're going to do a Boilermaker one night.
So essentially, it's 3/4 of a cup of water, a cinnamon stick, 1 to 1.5 ounces of honey, 1 to 1.5 ounces of lemon juice, and then 1.5 to 2 ounces of your whiskey. In this case, it's just I added a little bit more lemon than I did simple syrup, so it's a little bit. I can taste that lemon juice in there, which is really yummy. And then, but it's very. You get a little bit of the cinnamon in there. You can also heat up the water, boil it with the cinnamon and the cloves on the stovetop, and then
have you done it that way?
I've done something similar with orange juice and the orange juice and the cider. So instead of cider, it's water with the cinnamon and the cloves. So it's just switching up what you're using as your base. In this case, it's the water, the simple syrup, the lemon versus the cider and the orange with the cinnamon and the cloves. So it doesn't have as much of that sweetness to it. It's a little bit more tart if you add more lemon to it. But yeah, absolutely. And then you can also go like my brother would do and do the Tennessee honey. In this case, I'm adding the piggyback. The smell of the piggyback. Mm-hmm. Oh, that smells really good. So, and again, the color has now changed. Instead of the clear, now it's a little bit more yellowish, orangey color.
Almost like a lemonade.
Yeah, depending on how much you're putting in there. So here's my, what is it, Mike's Hard Lemonade? My version of it. Wow. So the first the first sips that I took without the alcohol was a little bit more citrusy and very gentle. Right now that I added the whiskey, it was a little bit more full-bodied, and I could taste it, especially right now that I still have a scratchy throat. I can feel it. It's like going,
when you add the whiskey to it, does it give it a smoky?
Yes.
Smoky taste? Okay, that's what I thought. Because your whiskey being a charred. So.
And it feels soothing on my throat. I can feel it going through my throat and just going around and making it all nice and warm and cuddly and fuzzy and saying, it's okay. Your cough will go away eventually after, a month.
Yeah.
So this particular sauce, oh my goodness, it came out very good with the wine and all the spices. I'm going to see how it's tasting with the toddy.
I'm going to pour me. I should have brought a ton of cups in tonight for what I'm doing, but I'm going to pour me a little bit of moonshine. Yes, I'm putting the lid back on my mason jar.
There you go.
It is moonshine that you can get in the store. All right. It is American whiskey, but anyway.
Yeah, you can find, now over the last year, I am seeing more moonshine on the shelves out there.
It's becoming a popular thing, and it's still not. All right. I still love, what's called White Lightning, original moonshine.
Okay.
You know what I mean? A lot of the moonshines you're seeing on the store shelves are flavored stuff to get the taste buds of your younger, sugary palate people.
Okay.
Which that is what I have here today. Is this one here was given to me. So we have a place down here that was originally marketed as a moonshine bar.
Okay.
And then they changed it, and we're going to go to just a mixed drinks, regular gastro pub. And now they're starting to go, wait a minute, we need to get back towards our roots. So now they're trying to bring moonshines back in.
Okay.
And I went there to visit a couple months ago. I still like to go visit. They still have great food. And I'm there, and I said to the guy, hey, do you have any moonshine? And he says, well, we have a few. He says, let me tell you some of the stuff we've got. You want to taste it? And he says, I got a butterscotch. All right. You know me and butterscotch. I'm like, whoa, I got to taste that. Well, I found me some of that butterscotch moonshine, and I got me some of it here.
Nice.
This one here is not as
sweet, because I was thinking dessert.
Not as much of a burn as the one I had.
Okay.
Right? This is more of a sugar.
Okay. I was thinking that would be more of a dessert, after dinner, just sit by the fireplace, enjoy.
It is, all right. However, the one that I had there at the store at the restaurant that day had more of the whiskey, the hard whiskey to it. Oh. This one here is more of, because it is the one I found is Old Smoky, which is probably the most well-known moonshine. Okay. Their flavor palettes are very, very sugary.
Okay.
All right. They're designed for the people who are really into sugary stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
That's not the moonshine that Tim grew up with.
There you go. Oh, wow.
Anyway, and back to the Kansas thing, because I had to have beef. Dodge City, Kansas has big beef yards. Big. Okay. I mean, like, you go outside of town, there's a big freaking yard of beef. Cattle yards. So
yeah, I remember one time driving when I was in Houston, and I just went out for a drive, and there was a section where it was cattle, and then it was this other section where it was all the industrial areas and all the electrical wires going through. And when they said, oh, what'd you do, because I went back to work the next morning, and I'm like, oh, I drove to this area, and they're like, oh, we're sorry, we didn't want you to see that. I'm like, it's part of this area. It is okay. There's nothing wrong with whatever the area is, whether it would be cows or whether it be industrial. That is just part of what is going on in the area. I mean, here you do have the cluster of city, but then I've gone outside the city limits where I took a picture. This was a few years back, where there's a tractor on the road. And that was my traffic for the day, was the tractor on the road. But I had to pretty much stop and wait for him to do his thing and get out of the way before I could go, because I really couldn't go around him because it was a two-way road. And so the other direction, there was cars coming. So I'm like, I can't pass them. I got to wait. So I took a picture, and I'm like, yep, Wilsonville traffic. So we have that, where we have the country that is so close to the city. And when I was first told, it's like, oh yeah, I live out in the country, I was like, what do you mean the country? And now that I live here, I understand. Oh yeah, the country.
Yeah, like I live in the country now compared to what I used to live, but still.
You're still close enough to where it's not completely.
I still got so many city conveniences where I'm close to. All right. But I get some nice views of some horse farms and some beef farms close by. So anyway.
So are you if you're that close, are you able to get some like really good steaks?
Again, I found this local meat store.
That's
that I'm turned on by. All right. And although I did look up when I get home, because the piece of meat that I got is a piece of like skirt steak.
Okay.
Cut that cut into pieces. Skirt steak is your tougher steak, right?
Yeah.
So I did research on how to do the marinade that they put on, and I'm going to make my own marinade and do my own marinade and probably do a piece of maybe a brisket with that marinade and put it in my smoker one day and try it over the next couple months. So
I love skirt steak. I grew up with skirt steak, and we had various marinades. But one marinade that I kept for a long time, it was my brother-in-law's marinade, is that he would slice up onions, oranges, and throw it all in a bag or a bowl, whatever, what have you, and then throw a beer in there, and then the juices from a whole orange would go in there, rind and all, sliced up orange juice, the onion, and the beer, and it just marinated just beautifully. And then right before you put it on, that's when you add the salt and pepper, and then it just comes out just deliciously tender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the skirt steak is a tougher steak, but yeah, I'm gonna get, I said, brisket, which is gonna be a softer steak, and I'm gonna probably get a piece of a couple of good pieces, good small, T-bones, maybe some sirloins. Same thing, put them through the marinade, cook them in the smoker, slow cook them for a little bit, and see what I can do with them. I'm going to investigate. Now that I have a smoker at the house, I'm going to investigate with what I can do.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
You got to have a little bit of fun with that.
So, 2022, all right, we had a lot of experiences both on the show as well as off the show. What is one of your favorite experiences this year?
On the show or off the show?
Let's start with off the show. All right, we'll come back to on the show.
So, being in California and trying new places, going where my brother and sister-in-law know, they hang out, they know the folks. That was just a nice experience because they're outside of LA, they're in Ventura County, but it is big enough to where it feels like a city, but small enough where you can go, find your little niche locations and people get to know you and they get to like you. And so we went to one location and the owner wasn't there just yet. And my sister-in-law says, oh, when the owner gets here, he will make us some Mexican candy. And so he made a drink that tasted like Mexican candy. And it was some pictures that I posted on the website. Then a couple of days later, we went to the Garage, which was their local bar that's, a quarter mile away from where they live. That's where my sister-in-law got to, be the chaperone for the bar while the bartender went to the bathroom or whatever it is she went to do. And he had made he has these little barrels, and he had a barrel of this limoncello that was absolutely delicious. So that one, I did a little video on it. I also posted on the website because he was talking about the limoncello. And what I was kind of bummed was that he also had a whiskey that it was sitting there, but it had to wait, and he wasn't going to tap it until like the day after we left. So I was like, darn it, I didn't get to taste the whiskey. But having those experiences to meet local individuals doing these local drinks that may or may not ever get out of the area, and you can only taste it if you're there. That I thought was just a wonderful experience, because even if you go back, maybe with the Mexican candy, you might get, that drink, but with the other place, he's doing something different every few weeks. And so you don't know what you're going to get. And that's kind of the fun part of it, is that if you're local, if you go back, you're going to taste the different drinks that this owner is making. And then that's just kind of part of the fun of it.
I know. But I remember that trip where we found the Kansas, and in Kansas, later on in that trip, we were in, like a town in New Mexico. The most experience we could find there was a local bar where, they have a couple of beers they make, right? But there's just something about when you take it from local bar to, someone who does the creating, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So local bar, right? Yeah. So they got wings on the menu. All right. They've got a steak on the menu. They've got French fry. They have a standard bar menu.
Yeah.
As opposed to an experience when you come into that location, when you leave, You're not going to get this when you go back to California, to Dallas,
Mm-hmm.
to Oregon. You're only going to get it while you're here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I love, right? That like is orgasmic to me when it comes to the drinking world, because of the fact you're getting an experience that if you want it again, you've got to come back to visit these people, not this town, these people only.
Yeah. Well, it was so cool because one of the days, because it's a bar, they don't serve any food. And there's a Mexican restaurant, it's a little fast food place right next to them, but they're not always open. They close at like 7 or 8, whatever it is. Well, we're at a bar. We're not getting there till after dinner. So but this one particular time we had been out and about, and I wanted tacos. I was just like, tacos. I want tacos. The Mexican place was closed. Well, there was there's Cindy. There was this food truck that I'm like, I go to the food truck, and we waited in line. And my sister-in-law's all, these better be darn good tacos if we're waiting in line. It was like 20 people deep, and it was like, okay, so we eat tacos or we want Jack in the Box. I don't want Jack in the Box. I'm like, I'll wait in line.
I'll wait an hour in line for the food truck every freaking time.
So we waited in line, and of course they're in line. So I went and I'm looking at the menu, and I'm like, okay, I know what I'm getting. So my sister-in-law, she's all, you order, she leaves it up to me. So I'm like, okay. So, I'm like, okay. So I'm like talking to them, telling them exactly what I want. I'm giving my brother, go get the horchata because I definitely want that, but I'm getting this taco and that taco and blah, 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 blah. Do the order, we pay. We take it to the garage. And so we're outside. I mean, we could take the food inside. They don't care. You can order food. They're fine with that. But we're sitting outside, and we literally have this picnic table full of food and the salsas and everything. We've already gotten our drinks inside. And the owner gets there, and he's all, where'd you get that? And we're like, oh, the food truck down the, blah, blah, blah. So he went out later, picked up some tacos for both his wife and the bartender because he needed the bartender to stay late, and said, please, here's a offering, stay late because we don't have the other bartender coming in.
That would have been my thing. Like, as a bartender, did you bring me some?
So bartender was so happy, comes out. It's like, oh my goodness, that was the best tacos. It's like, and they were really good tacos. So, back to the experience of stopping, getting the tacos, coming over, ordering our drinks, having, and getting other people to go, I want some of that. And then having them also go out and experience it. Mind you, that by the time they got there at like 9:30 at night, there was like one person in line at that point from when we went at 7. But it was just, I'm not going to find those tacos in Oregon. I'm just not.
Oh, it's not. So, like, while we were talking, Cindy, we love you, Cindy. All right. She puts on there hashtag drink porn, hashtag food porn. Woohoo. Yep. So, Cindy, yes, we are bucket list people. That's probably why we relate to Cindy quite so much. Right. Yes. We're bucket list people. We want to go do things, the experiences. Mm-hmm. I remember one time I was working one of Craig's conferences in California and at the Sheraton at LAX. And I always get the lunches with Craig's, right? Mm-hmm. But a food truck pulled up outside with barbecue.
Oh.
And I basically said, I'm taking my break now. I remember telling Tony, I'm taking my break now. And I went out to the food truck, stood in line, got me some local food truck barbecue.
There you go.
And came back inside and munched down on that sucker. Lunch came, and I'm like, I'm not hungry.
Really hungry. I got barbecue. Well, one of those events that I went to with Craig, of course, at the Sheraton. So it's not like you can really get a breakfast there, but there's a Denny's like a block up the road. So I went to the Denny's, and I'm like, well, I really only want one pancake and one egg. And they're like, what? I said, I want one pancake and one egg. I'm not seeing it on the menu. They're like, yeah, we can do that for you. So they charged me for one pancake, one egg, and my coffee. It was like it was a perfect amount of food for me, and it was delicious, and it was, I don't know, like $7 or something like that. It's like, who could, you can't get a breakfast for $7.
No. When I go to those places and I want that, I'm like, no, I'll pay your price to break it up. I don't care, but that's all I want. You know what I mean? And like when you do that, some places they appreciate that. No. I'm not here being cheap. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Whatever you charge me, I'll pay for it because that's what I want.
Yeah, that's all I wanted. I did not want any more. And I was like, oh my goodness. She probably got, on that, $3 chip because it was like.
Yeah. Well, that's what I do is if they make it cheap, I leave them a big tip because of the fact, right? They went out of their way to please me. Yeah. It wasn't about being cheap. And I know there's a lot of people who will do that to be cheap. Yeah. I'm not doing it to be cheap. I'm doing it because I'm here for the experience. Yep. I want Denny's food. This is what I want. I want Denny's food, and this is what I want when I want it. That's it. Yeah.
And that's all I wanted. So I made another hot toddy. I let the cinnamon, marinate for a little bit. I added the simple syrup and the lemon juice, and I adjusted it because it was not lemony enough. And then I added a little bit more simple syrup because I went a little too citrusy. And then I added my Skunk Brothers cinnamon whiskey to it. Skunk Brothers is in Washington State in Stevenson. So Stevenson, Washington, a whole other story related to this and how we got there. And I love in the back, it says get skunked. So I just got skunked. And adding this to my hot toddy, in my opinion, enhanced my hot toddy because it's not overly powerful, but it's got great taste. And so it brought up a little bit of that cinnamon taste and flavor. So, and if this one is a little bit darker in color, you might not be
starting to look like tea, not lemonade, looking like tea. Right.
Yes. And this, oh my goodness, yummy, yummy, yummy. I love this. This is the first time I added the cinnamon, and mainly because I've been drinking my toddies at home, and this was at the office, in my office bar. I haven't drank as much of it, but man, this is good stuff.
Well, so as we continue on with experiences, throughout the pandemic, all right, I became very much in the habit of, I had my moonshine always on my desk. I would sip it all day long, right? But do you remember our first episode? Mm-hmm. Our first episode where we tasted 3 different vodkas and we had like 7 different foods. Like we overdid it because we didn't know what we were doing. And I remember finishing going, oh, I'm spent for the night.
There you go. But you found a delicious new vodka that you absolutely love.
Yeah, I remember that because that was the night you introduced me to the Crater Lake vodka.
Right.
Which I still cannot get here in Texas. So
I have to send you another bottle. When my brother came to visit last year, I introduced him to Crater Lake vodka. Oh, and he loved it. So this time that we went down to California, I brought him a bottle. And it wasn't even the high-end one, the reserve. It was just their good vodka, and he loved it. Okay. It just tastes so clean, so delicious. Yeah.
So Gwen had a night, all right. I don't know if I should share this story live. Gwen had a night where she was fed up with drinking, right? Yes. She did something she didn't like, right? Something in her life. So she proceeds to start dumping out vodka.
Oh,
I'm like, what are you doing? Right?
It's not
it was on a night that like I needed vodka the following Monday for our show for something. And I'm like, no. She's like, and I stopped her before she dumped the good stuff out that my mother just bought for her and brought back from Pennsylvania.
Oh.
Yeah. Because like, she gets on these kicks like, oh my God, I should stop drinking. And I'm like, no, you just have to learn to drink in modification. Mm-hmm. I learned to drink in modification because of the fact that I have epilepsy, and I remember not taking my medication, being hauled off in an ambulance for my job, and then coming back to find out because I was hauled off in an ambulance, it now became obvious what my medical condition was, and I could not legally have that job.
Oh.
And that woke me up to, all right, you need to get your life right, because when drinking is just something to get you drunk, it is no longer fun.
Right.
But when you drink to enjoy taste, which I do now, I can't remember the last time. I think the last time I was drunk was probably 18 years ago. I just don't get drunk, right? I sip on it, right, forever. I may feel a little buzzed every now and then, but I sip on it because I sip for the taste.
Yeah.
All right. And it's the flavors that tickle my tongue that really make my day now.
Right.
That's experience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that makes a huge difference. And there's been times that for one reason or another, I had that one additional drink that I should not have had. And then the next morning, I'm like, I am not feeling good, and then I'm miserable. And it's like, I caused this on myself.
Christmas 2021 and the peppermint schnapps have not touched it since.
Well, that was different. That was
cheap peppermint schnapps I had that night.
Yeah.
Okay, Cindy just put up here, International Hot and Spicy Food Day, January 16th.
Okay, let's see what day of the week that is.
That is on a Monday. Okay, here's the deal, Cindy. She said National Bloody Mary Day is January 1st.
Yeah, that I knew. And I will be posting. So on January 1st, I'm going to be at Elijah Craig's in Newburgh. And no, McMinnville or Newburgh? No, I think it's Newburgh. Yeah. But Mary's Mixers will be there. At least the mix will be there. Gary will not be there, but the mixers will be there. And part of it is mimosas or Bloody Marys. It's like, oh no, it's Bloody Mary Day. I have to have the Bloody Marys with whatever it is that I eat. It's Bloody Mary. So I'm looking forward to that on January 1st. Yes.
Speaking of Gary, okay, that was another great experience this year.
Yes.
All right. The fact that the two of us started a podcast because we both like to taste whiskey, and eventually we got someone to come on the show and give us their stuff to be able to taste it.
Yes.
That was, to me, I'm like, I want to do this more often. I just want to sit back at home and have all these people send me their stuff to taste now.
And I don't know if I mentioned to you, but part of my, when I did my one thing, goal setting workshop for next year, it's okay. What are my goals for personal and business for next year? And then in the middle of all that, you have your 1 day dreams. So you have the 1 day dreams, and you have your 10-year, your 5-year, and you move back into the 1 year. And so everything you're working on now will eventually get you to that someday goal. And so my someday goal was to have the Young's Market and the Diageos of the world sponsoring our podcast. That's threw it out there. Yeah. And the thing is, within a week, I got introduced to Gary, spoke to him, and he's like, yep, I'm sending a care package to Tim, and I'll bring it down to you. And he goes, I would like, and he had the option to be on the podcast, not be on the podcast. He's like, oh yeah, I love that kind of stuff. And then either be here in person or he goes, no, I'll be in person. And I was like, yes. So to have him mix everything for me, I did the food, but he did the mixing. I mean, that was, and I thought that was amazing. And so I'm like, sometimes you just have to ask, you have to throw the things out there and say, this is what I want. And somebody, as you're talking about it, as I'm talking about the podcast, as you do, wherever we go, we're talking about our podcast. Somebody says, oh, I know so-and-so. I should introduce you. And then they introduce you. And then that introduction becomes something more than just we can talk about whatever it is, Mary's Mixers. No, it was a total experience to have the Mary's Mixers on our podcast.
That was one experience we had. The other one we had, which was Cindy. All right. Cindy invited us over to her show for Margarita Day. And
that was fun.
Too. That was a good experience. But Cindy, we do our show at the end of the day because we don't have to go back to work. We had to go back to work after Cindy's show. That was not a fun day. That was the hard part about that, Cindy, is we had to go back to work afterwards.
I think I had like this much of the tequila that day. I was like, yep, can't do it. I left it aside. It was there.
Yeah.
At the end of my day, that's when it's like, okay, I can have the rest of it.
At the end of our day, and like all I'm doing after this on any given night is having dinner with my family. All right, I'm not really going out. Like right now, my brother Jim staying at the house. So Jim's had an alcoholic problem, been an alcoholic most of his life, so he doesn't drink that much.
Mhm.
All right, he drinks very little. So this podcast is time. Jim's way over at my mom's house. He's not even over here at mine right
Yeah.
now. But experiences. That's what you and I are about. Is about the experiences we create. And I just remember that was one cool thing that having that on the podcast. Being with Cindy was a great one.
Yeah. Mhm.
One of the coolest things I remember this year was doing the shepherd's pie.
Yes.
And shepherd's pie when I tasted it with a Guinness.
Yeah.
Because I never liked Guinness beer.
Until you
I had
had
shepherd's pie. I'm like, wait a minute, this goes together, right?
And I will tell you, so these little cups, they were my mama's from when I was a kid. So I have the big punch bowl. The last time the family got together with Sean's family, actually, I made a big salad and I used my mom's punch bowl because I said, well, I need a big bowl. And so it was a nice big punch bowl. And I layered it. And then at the top, I made it look all pretty. But these were the little cups that we used as a kid. And we got a calendar.
All right, Cindy. Cindy, so is Facebook message me. All right, the stuff on this, so we'll get it from you that way. Thanks.
Oh, nice. Thank you, Cindy. We love you. Hold on. Here's my.
Get your heart. Get your heart. There you go.
There you go. But yeah, these were my mama's since I was a kid, and my mama would make punch in them, and we would have punch out of the big punch bowl. So I still have. So this is memories from a kid. I get to bring mama into the podcast, without her not being here, but yeah, in a way she is in spirit. So love you, mama. But,
oh, wow. I mean, it's just, to me, just talking about this, really thinking about experiences we've had this year, both on the show and off the show.
mm-hmm.
And the day that we had Greg on from Mary's Mixers, I was in a mastermind that day with Craig. And I remember being able to tell Craig that day in the mastermind.
This is what? Being in his mastermind.
Yeah, being in your mastermind, all right. Gladys and I connected. We created a show. And tonight we have someone bringing their product on our show. To highlight it on our show, and we're able to taste the product on our show.
Yeah.
I know.
And it's amazing when you come together and you talk about what are the things that we're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes in our mind, we might think it's a someday goal and we're throwing it out as a someday goal. But then somebody says, I know somebody, but because you're talking about it and it's something that you want to accomplish,
mm-hmm.
they're going to speak up and go, I know somebody I can connect you with. I know somebody that you need to meet. I know somebody that. And some people might take that as, yes, awesome. And others, I mean, I had gotten introduced to a local bar that is, their focus is wines
mm-hmm.
and Pinot wines, Oregon Pinot wines. Well, I'm like, oh my goodness, I would love to do a podcast from their location so that I can talk about them. And it didn't seem like there was enough time for them. It's like, we're busy. It's 4:30 to 5:30. You're not peak restaurant hours. All I need is a corner and good Wi-Fi. I will, if we need to bring your bartender in, we're going to, highlight you. And it just didn't flourish from there. And I was like, interesting. We're trying to give them free advertising that they can then use on their social networks. But it wasn't important enough. And I'm like, you know what? That's okay. It was not meant to be. There will be others.
You know what? I want to state this for 2023. All right. 2023, you and I are going to meet at a location. If we don't do it live, we're going to record it at someone's bar. You and I are going to meet there and we're going to record at a location. Mm-hmm. That's our bucket list. That's one of the things I want to do this year.
Oh, we can do it.
You and I don't care where it is in the country. We meet at the bar. They host it. They basically do the tasting or something with us. We film it and we put that as a podcast episode.
Oh, that's going to be awesome.
That's going to happen, girl, right there. Cheers. Yeah. So, some other stuff that I just thinking about this and experiences that you and I've had, you know, because of it, you've gotten to know Gwen. I'm getting to know Sean. All right. We met as just two people in love with whiskey at a Craig's event.
Yeah.
Right.
And the thing is, we had known each other during Craig's event, but we hadn't really connected until that event. And we found that commonality.
Yes.
That then connected us. So it was not just, oh yeah, know about Tim, know about Gladys, or may not know about Gladys. I did know about Tim, but it was that more intimate masterminding, talking about things. What is it that we are into? What are the things that drive us? What are the things we want to accomplish? And that was part of like, well, I'd like to do a podcast, but I'm so technically challenged that I'm like, I don't know that I could do this. And then Tim's all, well, I have that expertise. And it's like, come together. And here we are a little bit over a year later, because you put together the things that are, what's my weakness? Tim can elevate it, So, and then we bring in together two things that we both enjoy. So,
trust me, how many times I've just said, this is the alcohol, and you've given me like 16 pages of history on the alcohol. And I'm like, I just want to drink it.
Because that's what I enjoy. I mean, I'm bringing up the history of the hot tub.
That's what you know. I know how to get it on screen. So
it's fun stuff because there's always, why are these people doing what they did, or why did Skunk Brothers come up with, cinnamon whiskey, and how proud they are that it is clean and you got a good product. Haven't done the history of Whistle Pig here, but that's going to be another one because we haven't really.
Yeah, because I can get that. We're going to have to do a Whistle Pig. We're going, you know what? We'll put that up in a couple of months. But
yeah, that'll be fun. But I
just wait a minute. What is the one thing that we said that we're going to do on our podcast when you and I met that was a liking of that we haven't done yet?
Well, we haven't done gin, but I'm not a big gin drinker.
I'm not a big gin drinker either, but there was another thing that we haven't done yet.
Oh my goodness. We've done bourbons, we've done whiskeys, we've done quite a few things we both like. What is the one thing we both like that we've not done?
Well, I don't know necessarily say we both.
Single malt scotch.
Huh?
Single malt scotch.
We haven't done that too, but that wasn't something you and I talked about the day we met.
Oh gosh.
And I'm not saying both of us liked it, but one of us was a fan.
Oh, you're making me think back to August of 2021, sitting at Craig's living room chatting about it. I'm like going into my Rolodex of information.
No, it's been on the show, but you and I said we were going to do a show on it. We've not done a show on it by itself.
I don't remember it. As soon as you say it, I'm going to go, yeah, hello. Oh, yes, moonshine.
We said we'll have to do a show on moonshine. A year later, we still haven't done moonshine.
And the
we've
funny
done
thing
bourbons,
is,
we've done whiskeys, we've done vodkas, we've done
moonshine. Well, the funny thing is, when I was introduced to Skunk Brothers, they have what they can't call moonshine, but they have their version of moonshine. And I brought it up. I actually have a bottle that's untouched that's at home, because I figured we're going to do moonshine one of these days. So yes, I have the moonshine. It just hasn't happened yet. Oh, that is so true, because that was one of the first things we were supposed to have done.
Mm-hmm. Well, the neat thing was about March, we got into a rhythm this year. And that was, we realized that we had to come up with something that would get us through a month at a time.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we kind of put a theme to each month. All right. And that would help us to be able to do 4 shows or 5 shows in a row where we could plan it out. And that way we weren't, I remember that first show, I felt like I spent an hour and a half cooking, right?
I think
just
so.
Prepping food. And I'm going, and the cost of it. I remember the cost of that first night. Gosh, I spent a couple $100, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, we can't afford to do that every
And that
week.
was
We're broke.
Yeah,
Right.
and that was without the alcohol because I had shipped it.
That was not even including the alcohol. Yeah. But we got into a rhythm of it in about March, where then we come up with, working, to where everything seemed to stream into, and fall into the next week.
Yeah.
And I like that. All right. And I liked how that was one of the things we did with our show. And we've gotten great listeners who come by and share, things that like Robert shares his stories. And I know Robert, I think was an alcoholic and he doesn't drink as much anymore, right? Or doesn't drink at all anymore. Cindy. Oh yeah. Cindy just asked a question here. Cindy, we have not done Bullet bourbon yet.
But oh my goodness, that's one of my go-tos.
Is it?
Oh yeah. It's not here. It's at home. Yeah. Bullet.
We'll have to do it and compare it to another bourbons because Bullet by itself, I remember the last time I tasted it, I was not a fan, but I probably, just like Guinness, didn't have the right food with it.
That could be it.
Yeah.
Because I don't mind Bullet Rye in my old fashioned. That's pretty yummy, So yeah, Bullet and Bullet Rye, those are my go-tos here in Oregon. If I'm at a bar, Bullet Rye. I'll do Buffalo Trace.
Buffalo Trace, my favorite. Okay, Robert, I'm sorry, man. I thought you, but I did drink intensively for a short period of time. So, and you don't drink anymore, do you, Robert? Or you don't? You remember the stuff we talk about, I think is what it is. But yeah.
But yeah, we will do Bullet next year. We'll find something to pair it with, and we'll have to separate Bullet from Bullet Rye because the taste is
there's two different tastes, right? Yeah.
So either we just do Bullet or we do Bullet and then Bullet Rye separately, and then pair it with just the ryes to see how we like it.
All right. And that Robert is why you're our number one fan. You don't drink, but yet you show up every week. We love you, Robert. We thank you for being part of our show every week. We love
you. And I know that there's been times that he is out at the store listening. Oh yeah, of course, Bullet Old Fashioned. That's what I mentioned. Yeah.
So I think we've done Old Fashioned. I think we've worn it out a couple times this year because it is one of my favorite drinks. Is an Old Fashioned.
Same here. That's a go-to for me. Is an Old Fashioned. I love an Old Fashioned, especially if they have a good Old Fashioned with some good bourbon in there. With some Four Roses, with some Forester's 100. There's a few things that so it just depends. And then you have a good bartender and a big cube so that it doesn't dilute my old fashioned because then
So Gwen and I, we went out Saturday night because she was leaving Sunday. She left Sunday to go to her uncle's. Her uncle's second wife's funeral.
Oh,
okay. It's kind of weird. This, her aunt passed away, and her uncle married another lady. All right, who they were friends, and then she just passed away. Oh, and my wife, because she knew him, ran out there to the East Coast. But Saturday night, we went out to celebrate. Just her Christmas bonus and stuff. We went to a local bar to experience a local bar. And we get there and she's like, I want champagne. Well, they bring her champagne in a wine glass. Champagne in a wine glass. Wasn't that, I'm not picking on it. It was good champagne, right? But then I say, I'll have an old fashioned. And
they're like, a what?
No. They brought me a good old fashioned. They did one thing wrong.
Did they forget?
What is our rule and you and I's rule on an old fashioned?
Oh, besides a big cube?
Big cube. Little crushed ice into it. So after I finished that, I said, you know what? Just bring me a Buffalo Trace by itself.
There you go. Yeah, right now I have Buffalo Trace at the house. That's what I've been kind of sipping on and off on because it's a yummy go-to, just simple, easy drinking, almost like a Glenlivet 12, just easy to drink. Yeah.
That country club that we went to for Craig's, they have Buffalo Trace. And I remember there were one of the few in Dallas that have it.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
That's like that have it, but not as many. You have to come north of the city to get it.
Okay.
Like north of 121 to get it.
Well, here in Oregon, it's Buffalo Trace is.
Yeah.
You can find it anywhere.
In town Dallas, it's harder to get.
Wow, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How each area is so different on what's served. And there's this one bar that's in Washington that all they serve are local Washington anything, whatever it is, it has to be from Washington State, where they will not serve it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Oregon, you can find anything Oregon, Washington on at most bars.
Wow.
And they'll keep the staples. And then depending on where you're going, they'll have the, if they're more focused on vodkas or whiskeys or wines or whatever it is, and then they'll have more of that. But then they'll have their basic, and Buffalo Trace is usually one of those basics that are, their staples.
So, I mean, you mentioned a couple things there. Like these are staples I always go to. And I know we're at an hour on the podcast, but you and I taste an awful lot of stuff because of the fact we bring it on here to experience it with our audience.
Right.
What is still, even though we've been experiencing stuff now, what is still a go-to? You go back to it every time and you love it.
Glenlivet 12.
Glenlivet 12?
That's just my go-to. But either Buffalo Trace is another one that's just an easy go-to when I'm looking for when I just want something that's a brown liquor. Because of price point. If I'm like, oh, okay, I'm on budget, but Buffalo Trace is just one of those that is a price point. Bullet is another one, price point. Maker's Mark, again, price point. And then when it comes to vodka, I do love my Crater Lake, but usually what Sean likes is a 10X or a 7X, which is the name of whatever vodka it is, which tastes good, but I still prefer my Crater Lake. That's my go-to when it comes to vodka, if I'm out and about. But yeah, it's usually a brown liquor. My go-to old fashioned when I'm at a restaurant, go-to is a Buffalo Trace. Anything Oregon will be at the top of the list just because the price point when I'm at a bar. I have a particular, like if I get anything above a 12-year-old Scotch at a bar, I'm spending close to $20. I have a problem with that. But at Glenlivet, 12 will run between 8 to 12. And I'm okay with that. So that's why Glenlivet 12 when I'm out and about. So then I look at Glenlivet and I look at the other local whiskeys and say, okay, where do they compare? And based on price point, I will go on that, because if I have a good Scotch at home, you know what, why am I going to spend $20 at the bar when I have an 18-year-old at home?
Well, that's it. I fell in love in Texas with Iron Wolf distilleries. But in Texas, when it comes to your bourbons, the one you're going to find in more bars is going to be your Garrison Brothers. Okay. Garrison Brothers is a very, very good, bourbon. They have very good bourbons and scotches. All right. But you talk about the vodkas, like I still avoid Tito's. I'm not a Tito's fan. I will go through local Texas ones. All right. In our house, we have almost always have a bottle of the vodka we have is what is the name of the town that it's in? It's Texas vodkas that we get, right? It's just our go-to in Texas. Dripping Springs.
Okay, and I do have Tito's. That's actually a staple that I keep in the bar is Tito's. Price point, again, it tastes good. Do I like it more than my Crater Lake? No, but I am a Tito's fan. So Tito's, if you're listening, talk to Mary's Mixers, Gary. I think that's a good combination. We're just saying.
Wouldn't it be cool if we're the people who connected them?
Oh, that would be awesome.
Anyway. So Cindy brought it up. Yeah, as we getting ready to close out here, Cindy brought up a thing. Favorite drink is a Negroni, which we had in our mixers during 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago we had those. Yeah, but I didn't know that was Anthony Bourdain's favorite.
Okay.
I did not know that.
You must like gin.
Yeah, I think Anthony did like gin. So anyway, well, it's the end of another hour.
Yes.
Next week, all right, will be the week before Christmas. So we're going to do what we call company Christmas party.
Or holiday party, whatever you want to call
Or
it.
holiday party if you're not into the word Christmas, okay? We don't want to offend you, all right? But we are
Right.
drinking. How can you offend people when you're drinking?
Right.
My opinion again. So we'll do a holiday, you know what I mean? A holiday company holiday party. I know you and I are self-employed, so we really don't have a holiday party with our company. So our holiday party is going to be you and I together.
That's right. That'll be great. And our listeners.
But we're not doing anything weird like you've seen in the movies, you know. Anyway, but we will tell tales of company parties of days past. Should we do that?
I don't know that, I have very few parties that I went to, and it's been so long. Yeah, we really didn't
We
have
should talk about them because I can tell you some stories from the 80s company office parties as we were leaving for Christmas. Yeah, stuff that we can't do anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one of my first parties. I was probably 19, 20 years old, 20 years old, actually. I guess I was at that job, I was 21, 2021. Yeah, a couple of parties there. Then when I went to work for the payroll company, we really didn't have holiday parties. We would have a holiday bazaar where we could sell products in the cafeteria, and that was kind of fun, but we really didn't have parties. Yeah.
No, we had a holiday. I remember we had a holiday party one time, and I wasn't good at mixing drinks yet. And the bottle of vodka kind of came a little loose.
Oops. I hate when that happens.
On my screwdriver. I was more screw than driver.
I was going to say, I think you were a little screwed on that one.
Luckily, I had someone to drive me home that night. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway. That's important. That's important stuff.
Yeah. Anyway.
Good times. Well,
all right.
Thank you, everybody, for being here with us today. We appreciate you. We're going to see you next week. And in the meantime, we are your sponsors. This is my co-host, Tim Gillette, with Simple Easy Marketing. Tell us what you do and how you help businesses, Tim.
Hey, I help people with online content and content creation, making it simple and easy for you to get your message out, get connected with your client, your ideal client, all right, and get them to buy from you faster. SimpleEasyEvents.com. Find out more about the events we got coming up.
And I'm Gladys Boutwell, Insurance by Design. I help small business owners with their employee benefits to attract and retain quality staff in the states of Oregon, Washington, and California. But if you are outside of those states and you have questions, guess what? I know people in your state. I will answer your questions, and then I will warmly transfer over to somebody that will take care of you in your state. You can find me at insurancedesignpros.com. And right now I am helping businesses with their 1/1 effective date craziness and individuals with their enrollments with renewals on open enrollment. So if you have questions, just reach out to me again, insurancedesignpros.com, and I'll find you somebody if I can't do it for you.
I was curious, how many more weeks of madness do you have?
Well, this Thursday is the effective date for a 1/1 date, but in Oregon, they extended it to January 15th. So anybody that is not done by the 15th will still be able to update until the 15th of January. My groups, though, those I do need to enroll this month, do the renewals, updates this month so they can have a 1/1 because that will not carry into January. So that'll be.
So I guess you and I will be drinking heavily the next couple of weeks, huh?
Oh yeah, after
you're done work for the night.
Yes.
Clarify that.
No, most definitely, and hopefully I'll have a little bit of downtime. Not next week, but the week after. Hopefully I'll be able to take 2 to 3 days off. That would be nice to not have to worry about most anything. I'll be at the coast. I will have my laptop because there's always something that comes up, but I won't be working the 12 to 16-hour days that I'm working right now.
All right, guys. Thank you, my co-host. I appreciate you being part of our show. All right, and helping me make this happen every week. Thank you for our listeners. I appreciate every one of you who listen in and comment. All right, and engage with us, whether you listen live or you listen to the recording. I do appreciate you and appreciate you coming by.
Yep, we both do appreciate you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We'll see you next week, y'all.
Bye, guys.